All right, good afternoon. My name is Brandon Whip. I'm a farmer from East Central South Dakota, and I'm also one of the farmers that helps put Commodity Classic together. This is one of the learning centers that we selected. We hope it's very relevant to you and your operation. I'm glad you were able to find the Mile High Ballroom, which is located in the basement for some reason. That doesn't make any sense at all, but here we are. I just have a couple housekeeping items for us. First off, when it gets to the question period, please, for everyone's benefit, make sure your question is asked into a microphone. I'll try to run around with a microphone, or you can step up to one at the stand there. Some evaluation forms were passed out, and we really do take those into consideration when we're trying to plan next year's show, because we want to keep things as relevant to you as possible. And then finally, if you're looking for CCE credits, there was a table in the hallway that you had to pass to come down this hallway that I believe has a sign-up sheet on it for that. So that is all I have, and I just want to thank Renovo for sponsoring this session, and I'm going to turn it over to Justin.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Brandon, and thank you, everybody, for coming. We're going to have some fun here today. And before we get into that, though, I just want to introduce Renovo Seed. We are exhibiting up here. So we are from Brookings, South Dakota, and really we're a national brand that focuses on all specialty seeds. So a lot of cover crops, annual forages, alfalfa, perennial grasses, hay and pasture mixes. And so our whole goal with those is to tie this presentation or this producer panel into making you think a little bit differently about your operation and making sure that when you have these opportunities to diversify your crop rotation, you have a little bit more intel into how to do that. So that's Renovo Seed. Jared's going to introduce AgSpire as well.
All right. Yeah, my name is Jared Knock, farmer from Willow Lake, South Dakota. And AgSpire is a relatively new company. We're about 3.5 years old, and we design and implement sustainability regenerative agriculture programs that producers can participate in. So they're voluntary incentive-based programs that focus on the ability of your operation to adapt to a soil health or productivity practice that makes sense for you. And we connect that through the supply chain to the products that you're producing, up ultimately with those large buyers of those. So we work with some of the larger companies that are buying the most of our products, whether it be beef or corn or wheat, and then applying those sustainability practices, story, and outcomes to the products that your consumers are buying. So you can find us on agspire.com. We have a producer network. If we have programs that are in your geography or with your commodities, you can take a look at those. We've got about 6 programs right now that we've launched and looking to launch many more in the coming years.
All right. So like I said, we're going to have a little bit of fun with this producer panel. Being as it's the last day of Commodity Classic, and you've probably sat through a handful of these presentations and gotten lectured to, we're going to spice things up just a little bit more. So this game we've developed is really like a game that you could take these decks of cards home, and everybody's got one at their seat, and you can go through these opportunities, challenges, or the wild cards. And each one of them has a scenario that's going to make you think a little bit differently, and you can answer them in relativity to your operation. So that's what we're going to do with these guys. We've got we got 3 awesome participants in the games. They're going to introduce themselves. But when we're answering these questions, it's going to be about their operation. So rather than just sitting up here and telling you what they're going to do, we're going to play this game, and then we're going to have a little bit of an audience interaction with this as well. So before we get into the game, like I said, we'll have our contestants introduce ourselves. So my name is Justin Frichte. Like I mentioned, I work with Renovo Seed, and I've been there about 15 years now. But my wife and I, we've got 5 kids, and we farm and ranch near Ward, South Dakota. We run about 300 ewes and 80 cow-calf pairs, have a small background in operation. And everything we do, we farm for feed. And that's really ties in nicely with what we do with Renovo Seeds, with the annual forages and cover crops and perennial grazing systems as well. This is how we interact, okay? And I'm going to show you this again after we get through introductions and we start with the game, we spin the wheel. Trent, you want to introduce yourself?
And first up, all right. Yeah, my name's Trent Kubik, 4th generation farmer and rancher in South Central South Dakota. The Michigan people always do it with their hand, so I'm right there in South Dakota. And if you're familiar with South Dakota, we're split by the Missouri River, so East River and West River. I'm just west of the Missouri River. A little more arid environment there. We raise a multitude of crops, corn, soybeans, wheat, alfalfa, and have a cow-calf operation there as well. My wife and 2 sons are moved back on the farm About 2018, we moved back, and then in 2020, we started a seed business with my brother there in Winter, and then farm and raise cows.
All right, we got Quentin Keneally with us as well. Do you want to introduce yourself?
All right, yep. I'm Quentin Keneally, a fifth-generation farmer on we call it the east coast of Nebraska, Tekamah, Nebraska. I guess I'm a social media personality. I'm the rookie cover cropper of the group, I think. So had a lot of flooding this last year, so we incorporated some cover crops in our operation, but heavily irrigated corn and soybeans. Big on the ag tech sector, so I bring a lot of technology to the farm, test it out, and talk to different products, and let them know how it works on the farm, and that's what we do. A little bit in Nebraska Corn Growers Association. I'm a local rep, so just tackle everything Nebraska corn and everything Nebraska represents, and excited to start this cover crop adventure.
And what's your cool handle, Quentin?
Q Keneally and Q Keneally 19.
All right. And Brady, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Brady Wolf. I'm from west central Minnesota. A little town of Starbuck is where our farm and ranch is located. At Clear Springs Cattle Company, we are mainly a seed stock, Simmental and Sim Angus operation. I farm there with my parents, my brother, and my wife. And my specialty is in the crop side, where we're doing 100% no-till and pretty extensive cover crops. We've been doing cover crops since I can remember, so over 20 years. Dad kind of just started out with behind small grains, and it's evolved into always having a living root in the soil year-round, and excited to be here. Kind of got tied in with Renovo and AgSpire as a Renovo dealer and an AgSpire participant as well.
Awesome job. Okay, Jared, why don't you talk outside of AgSpire, your operation, and introduce yourself.
Sure, yeah. So again, Willow Lake, South Dakota, that is square in the middle of East River, since we've already got the East River, West River declination pointed out there. We diversified operation as well, so corn, soybeans, oats, alfalfa, and lots of other grazing cover crops or full season systems. We'll do some millet, we'll do some other stuff as well. Also very focused on producing silage and feed for our livestock operations. Cow-calf operation, commercial ewe flock, hog finishing barn, and then have an ag retail business as well that we've been able to help lots of producers, about 200 some producers over the years, plant their first cover crop, do their first native grass restoration, help with grazing systems and things like that.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to start, and I'm going to be the rookie here. I'm going to spin. Jared's going to pull a card, whatever I land on, and then we'll get through the game as far as how it's going to roll here. All right, so we're spinning the wheel. What is that?
I think it's opportunity.
I think it's opportunity.
Okay, and you guys have the cards, so if you want to,
Yeah.
please open up your card deck, and they're going to be the same ones that we're going through here. All right, Jared, what's my
This was a good one
opportunity?
for you. Okay.
Okay.
So Justin, you have been approached by a utility company to lease land on a solar farm for 30 years. After 5 years of the lease, your farm will be paid for, and you have the opportunity to graze the grass beneath the panels. Do you do it? How do you adjust the rest of your farm accordingly?
This is very pertinent. So just a few weeks ago in our area, in Lincoln County, Minnesota, there's going to be a new solar farm coming in. So it's going to be about 4,000 acres in Minnesota and about 5,000 acres just over the border in South Dakota. So we were approached by the utilities company, and we kind of held our ground for the longest time of, do you sign it up, do you not? And it's not an easy decision. We were kind of the first in our area to get wind turbines on too. And that seemed to be an easier decision. You know, like your land's not, taken over by panels with just a wind tower. You got a road for access for them, and you got a pretty decent payment from the turbine. But the panels, you're not doing anything with them really for 30 years. So you got to think long term if that's really going to fit in your operation. It gets really tricky when you know all your neighbors around your land get signed up and you're the one that isn't, and you're going to have to find more land to rent because your rented land is now going to be a solar farm. And so ultimately, I guess on our land, we kind of assessed each piece, and we said, all right, this piece isn't close to our home farm. Maybe there's not like that sentimental value because it was my grandpa's and my dad's land, and now it's our land. And if it didn't have that sentimental value and it was poor quality farmland that we knew we wanted to generate a lot of extra income that we couldn't ever get from running cows on it, that was the farm that we decided to put into solar panels. And so I guess the thing that excites me about the solar panels, and not everybody has this opportunity, but there's some cool things happening with the agrivoltaic side of things. And so it's going to be using some different crops underneath the panels to create more forage, and then grazing small ruminants. And sheep would be our small ruminant that we're going to graze out of. And so it probably opens up some bigger opportunities with running more sheep and grazing solar farms. And so it looks a lot different for sure, but I guess that's how we're going to tackle it there.
And okay, just to jump onto that, Justin. So there is also, so if you've heard of something called silvopasture, maybe you've heard that before. And it's basically a savanna expanse. It's an intermittent planting of trees with enough exposure underneath where you still get grass and vegetation to grow.
Yeah.
But most of our grasses, unless there are native C4 grasses, most of our C3 grasses actually do somewhat better in partially shaded environments. So if you notice, the brome grass growing underneath trees will stay vegetative all year long because it's actually not going and regress back into its summer dormancy.
Yeah.
So like when you're talking about that mix, and now that you can kind of help control that on your land, planting the right mix that actually may benefit vegetatively from being partially shaded. Where we're this far north, we're getting 16 hours, 17 hours of sunlight at a time to go into that dormancy.
Mm-hmm.
That shading actually could make some of that ground more productive from a grass standpoint, even if it's losing some direct sunlight to the panels.
Yeah, for sure. And that's been a big, I mean, this whole solar farming thing is, I mean, it's evolving and it's new, and we're trying to navigate how it should work from the seed side too, because they're being influenced by, other organizations that want different pollinator species on there, conservation groups that want to see what they want on there. But if you're going to be grazing it, hopefully at Renova we can have some influence on, these are good quality grasses, they're still going to be productive, they're going to work with the panels, and like you said, they'll fit in because of the shading from the panels too. So opportunity, lots of changing dynamics with the solar panels.
And I would say if this happens to you and you don't have an avenue for sheep to graze under these panels, talk to Justin and Jared, because they get giddy when they talk about sheep, and they would be your best friend when it comes to it. So these are your sheep guys.
That's a compliment, right?
Yeah. And I also say be ready for it, because it's coming to every state. So we've been targeted in Nebraska too. So be ready for it. And there's some wise business decisions if you do it right. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there to move other acres to other acres better performing. So just be open to it. I mean, we're heavily irrigated, and they're going to move our pivots. So we've been targeted also, and that's came to fruition in the last 5 years. So it'll be at your doorstep any day. Just be ready to navigate it for sure.
All right, next up is, forgot this part. Okay, so we're going to have a little audience interaction here, right? So you can text that number at the top, 605-675-7255. And 1, I would do what Justin did. That's what you text. Or 2, you can say I'm an idiot, I do something different. And then we're going to, after each one of these, we'll come back and we'll see what the audience thought. All right, Trent, you're up. You ready to spin?
Let's do it.
Okay, tell me when to stop.
You can start first.
Start first.
There we go. Stop.
That is squarely in the challenge category. All right, Trent, you've been challenged. For the next 3 years, every commodity you produce will be sold for exactly break-even prices. The only profit you will be able to make will be due to added value. How do you adjust your operation to maximize added value?
Well, first off, I'm pretty excited that we're at break-even prices. That's
like a big step
It's
up.
not a challenge.
Maybe that's a win. Maybe that's good enough.
Opportunity.
I would say, so for us in central South Dakota, grew up by the town of Winter, and we're not known for the highest producing land in there, so our crops we vary from 0 bushel to 150 bushel corn given the year and given the rainfall. The one thing we are plentiful in is this thing called the Chinese ringneck pheasant. So I hear something like this, that's the first thing I go to is how do I add value to ground that I can't really extract more value out of in terms of selling commodity grains. So that's where I look at, especially things like sorghum, like milo, things that pheasants like to have their habitat in. I think looking at those things and using those ground, maybe we're not harvesting right away in the fall. We're gonna hunt them. It's wild to me the people that come to Winter, South Dakota in the fall to come shoot pheasants. It doesn't excite me, but boy, it excites a lot of people. And so I look at those acres that, man, if I could run a hunting business, it's something we already do. So this is kind of something we know well on our operation, bringing people in from all over the country to come hunt pheasants. So if I can hunt that sorghum, hunt that habitat, and then come back, one thing we've had the benefit of with having those acres is not necessarily we're going to combine that milo and sell it. A lot of guys do, but that's where we winter our cows. And all that milo and sorghum usually stays up above the snow, God willing, and we can run our cows on all those acres. So we hunt them till December, and then we graze our cows until it's time to calve at the end of February. So it extends our grazing period. We don't have to feed near as much hay in the wintertime. It's a really good, excellent food source for our cattle. And so if I can break even on the commodity on that ground, but I can bring in a wildlife operation or things like that and hunt that ground, I think that makes our farm a lot more sustainable, and it makes our cow-calf operation a lot more sense.
Fun fact about South Dakota, our state bird is not from our state. It is from China, and we celebrate our state bird every year by shooting hundreds of thousands of them in the fall.
Don't go try to shoot a loon in Minnesota. It doesn't go as well.
You cannot do that in every state. That is not permission.
Yeah, I think we're up to 47 states of people that have visited our lodge and came and hunted at our ground. So it's just, like I said, it's just wild. So our seed business is in the town of Winter. We farm about 30 miles outside of Winter, and our seed business is right by our small little airport in Winter, and which is usually winter wheat season. So we're loading wheat, we're treating wheat, and all day, every day, you just watch these $20 million jets flying into Winter, and you just think, I bet those guys could care less about the seed industry right now as they're flying in these high-dollar jets to come shoot pheasants. But it's boomed our economy in Winter, and it's made our operation a lot more sustainable, and it's had the ability to, the next generation to come back, because now we have things outside of the farm and the ranch that need attended to, that need worked at, and it's helped our operation quite a bit.
So on the, thinking for your crop rotation, where you're putting milo, do you go back to milo on those same acres, or do you shift your food plot acres?
We tried to shift them because one thing, until this last year, we've had herbicide-resistant milo that's helped with our foxtail is our worst nightmare with the grass, and kochia with the broadleaf. So we try to rotate those if we can, if it's within a field. So a lot of our fields are square fields, and then they're stripped out. We'll have hunting strips every 3 hunting strips per field. And so if that's the case, we like to rotate them in and out. That's where grazing helps a lot, because if we leave that go, it's really hard to come back and plant into it the next spring. We're 100% no-till, so we really don't like running a disc across those to do residue management. And so in the fields where we can't graze them, then we'll either come and hay them or combine them and then try to rotate it. But you get a lot of areas where we're at, we get kind of hilly. So if it's a food plot along a creek or something where you can't move it, you just have to manage it a little differently. But that's where cattle has really helped our ability to go into it without the use of tillage.
Yeah, that's huge. Brady needs some food plots to run more cows on.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a lot of deer, not as many pheasants, but a lot of deer, and they'll eat anything. They find our rye fields, that's for sure.
Quentin, you ready?
I think so.
You want to tell me when to start?
Go for it. I'm a big pheasant fan too, Trent. So I've been up to winter hunting them. So, all right, stop it.
He gets a
Wild card.
Snap.
There we go.
There we go.
First wild card. All right. Quentin, by responding to a 5-minute phone survey from a farm magazine, you have won a $10,000 gift certificate for seed. However, you can only spend it on a type or a species of seed that your farm has not purchased in the last 3 years. What do you choose, and how do you use it?
Snap. Okay. So yeah, we're basically corn and soybeans, so pretty boring. And this is my first year cover cropping, so we did German foxtail millet, rye, radish, turnips, and vetch. So I'm actually intrigued by milo because I'm a big hunting advocate. So we Pheasants Forever and stuff. So we have some decent pheasant numbers around there, and quail's coming along, so we got some quail coveys. So I actually do like the habitat, and we have a lot of waterfowl. We're on a huge waterfowl stretch along I-29 and the Missouri River. So I like milo. I've never been able to plant it, so I would probably throw something in there. I don't know what the ROI in that is, but I know it's a lot less to maintain. It's really itchy. So, but yeah, I think just like Trent worked on, we do strips, put it in the right spots. We have a lot of WRP for wetland restoration around there on our river bottoms. So I think milo would be my top prospect on that one.
Just be prepared. Compared to corn and soybeans, a pro box of Milo covers a lot of acres. You're going to be planting a bunch of it.
And you have $10,000
Yeah.
to buy.
Yeah. Does it work under solar farms too?
Probably try.
Maybe they're kidding.
But yeah, we got a lot of waterfowl and lakes, and we hunt waterfowl, so we got our own lake and pump irrigation water into it. So yeah, we chase the birds, and so yeah, I like it.
All right, so we're going to go back and hear some of our results. So Julie, do you have a result to tell us of what, if they would agree with me, if they'd agree with Trent?
So yours is about 70% agreed.
70% agreed.
Okay.
They'd take the cash and sign it up for a solar farm, okay?
Yours was about 85%.
Oh, pretty good. Good job, Trent.
Right, I like the people in this
way to go.
crowd. Yeah, all right.
Way to go.
You're winning, I think.
So far, Quentin's is a little bit lower. It's probably 50-60% agreed.
Okay.
I'll work with that.
You're losing.
It's only up from here.
All right,
let's
Brady,
give Brady a shot.
you ready?
Yeah. Stop.
Challenge.
Oh, boy.
Challenge accepted. All right, Brady. Last night's hailstorm wiped out your cornfields, and even your pasture grasses took a major setback. It's the 25th of July. You had fertilized for a bumper corn crop and used both pre- and post-emerge chemicals. How do you pivot from here?
First thing I do is call somebody like Justin. But yeah, I think
Is this a challenge or this is an opportunity too?
this is an opportunity too. But I think the number one thing that comes to mind, I mean, we've talked all sorts about it, but is like your sorghums. At least for us too, we need to provide feed for the cows. You got a pretty small window there. We've been doing some 85-day sorghum. I'm really bad at quick math. What's 85 days after July 25th?
It's getting tight.
You're a little light.
That's getting
Yeah.
pretty tight. So you'd probably have to go then with the sorghum sedan route, and then cut that, put it in a bag for some winter feed, graze it, any extra.
Swath graze.
But if you fertilize for a bumper crop, I mean, if there's water there, which if you're getting hailstorms, means you're probably getting rain, then you should have feed coming out of your ears if you get it seeded at a good time.
For sure. Oh, I think as a livestock producer, that's the thing to do. Capitalize on that fertility. But if you're not, I mean, this happens every year. Somebody gets hailed out and they already had their fertility out, they had herbicide. But you want to grow something, otherwise you're just going to leach your nitrogen and it's gone. So cover crops with tap roots, with like a radish, a rapeseed, turnip, and then having some grass like an oat to get you some quick ground cover. Those type of blends are going to at least capture some nitrogen and then put it into an organic state as plant material, and then as it decomposes and breaks down that next year, you're going to get some of that return back to you. So you need to plant something, right? And
Yeah, you gotta hold it there,
Yeah.
and you can hold it there in the form of a plant that's decaying, or you can find your neighbor cow guy and hold it there in the form of a cow pie until next spring too. So either works.
I think the other thing, like anytime that comes up, it's easy to do nothing, right? Like you just got hailed out, or maybe you had a fire and that destroyed your crop. Whatever it is, it's easy to just say, the heck with it for the year, I'm done. But if you increase your management just a little bit, usually that payback comes because you're going to save on fertility costs that next year. You're probably going to keep your soil biology active and alive and boost things that as well. So.
Yeah,
This exact scenario happened to us last summer. I think it was on July 25th too. But the herbicide piece is a little bit of a ringer in there. Typically by July it should be gone, but especially with some of these post-emerge herbicides we're using that have residual activity, and that's where sorghum fits in so well. I mean, you go in there, sorghum sedan is really cheap. Even if you don't have cattle, just planting sorghum sedan. We saw it here a couple weeks ago, I think in Iowa, eastern South Dakota, where a lot of silage acres that got taken off and nothing got planted back, and then instead of a blizzard, you have a dust storm. So I think covering that ground was something, and sorghums work, especially in a corn rotation, sorghums work so well, and then just let them go, and let them go, and if you're into tillage, till them down, or just let them decay, and you shouldn't have too much to mess with next year.
I think the other thing to think about too is, I mean, you're at the end of July, you got a hot August ahead of you. With no soil cover, you completely fry the top few inches of your soil. I mean, that if you're going to be completely black dirt in August, I mean, you're losing all your biology in the top few inches of your soil just because it bakes in the sun. So if you can get something out there and get it covered up a little bit so it's not, maybe keep that soil surface temp down around the 90-degree range instead of up around the 120, 130-degree range.
Yeah. All right, Jared. Oh, everybody do your text if you haven't. And Jared's up.
All right, spin. Ready, set, spin, and stop.
Ooh, quick one.
Okay, I'm going to read my own wild card. Okay. You can double the size of the operation you run today, but the expanded acres and you will locate 150 miles to the west. Do you take the trade? Why or why not? How would you adjust to the change in geography? Okay, so where I live very much on the western end of the Corn Belt, where we're still fairly productive. And I compare like the Glacial Lakes area where we're at to be as productive as almost anywhere in the Corn Belt. It's a really good area. We also farm in the James River Valley, which is kind of the start of the American West, where things really get to be changed quite a bit. If I'm going to move 150 miles to the west, that's going to put me right west of Pierre, South Dakota. That is like moving 1,000 miles away if you're from Illinois to there. So that's a big stretch for me. Now, because if you're in Illinois and you can trade 150 miles west and you end up in central Iowa, that's a great deal. I'm going to pass. I'm going to pass because even from a pasture standpoint, we would be probably 4 to 4.5 acres per pair for the grazing season, 6-month grazing season. If I go 150 miles west, I'll have double the land base, but I'm probably going to move more to a 15 to 16 acres per pair in that geography. So I'm not going to get much of a trade up here. Now, it's prettier.
Yeah.
It's more isolated. It's kind of cool. Maybe you like to have like a summer house out there, but probably not going to make that trade.
Brady, would you take it?
I'd be in Aberdeen, South Dakota, so I think I'd take it.
Yeah. It's all relative.
Trent, where would you be?
Boy, I live in the middle of nowhere the way it is right now.
It's the same.
Yeah, I'd be, if anybody's familiar with the Badlands of South Dakota, I would be right smack dab in the middle of the Badlands. And same thing, maybe a 30-to-1 ratio of pairs. Yeah, so I would pass on this one too. Yeah, that gets pretty tough. Like you said, we're right on the edge of things. There is guys that farm out there and have success, but it's a whole different climate when you go western South Dakota.
Yep. Quentin, what did you do?
That's a funny story. It actually put me right back to where my family came from, Dunning, Nebraska. Keneally Angus, if you're familiar with them. That's kind of where my family came from. My grandpa stayed home and farmed, and his brother Marty went out there and started the herd. But that put me out there, and that's a little rough country. A lot more cattle, not much crops, so I'd probably have to stay home too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and put in perspective too, my average APH would probably go down from like 170 to 175 to 75. I mean, honestly, so it would go less than half and 150 miles west, and I wouldn't be able to raise soybeans very effectively. Mostly because I wouldn't have enough ground cover to keep the ground intact after I raise them, not enough residue. So that would change me quite a bit, so I'm gonna stay home.
Big time. All right, so we're going to go back. We're going to play one more round. So we're going to go up to Trent again. Are you ready, Trent?
Let's do it. And stop.
Wild card.
Wild card, popular. This probably also happened to you last year too. A 4th of July fireworks show starts your neighbor's section of wheat on fire. He offers you to farm, the next day, offers you to farm the field for free so we can have growing cover. Describe how you would farm it and why.
Well, we didn't start any fires with fireworks, but it sounds like something that would happen in South Central South Dakota. I would do it, and again, we're fortunate with livestock that we go right in there with the ranch hand cover crop, diverse cover crop mix. Obviously, we burned a lot of carbon off with that fire, so trying to get some carbon sequestration, getting some grass crops in there, that would be good. What I would fear is if we're starting fires on the 4th of July, the likelihood of enough moisture to plant that crop into in there to get it to grow is risky, but it's a risk we take every year. Cover crops we found in South Central South Dakota, it's kind of like a drug. Like it hits once and it's awesome and you just want to do it every single year. And it works like once every 5 years, but gosh darn it, when it worked, it's awesome. And it is, it's true. I mean, the fields that we've got an established cover crop on following a small grain crop, we have a lot of oats, a lot of wheat with our seed business. So we have a lot of those acres that are sitting idle in the middle of the summer, middle of July. And man, if you can get 1 or 2 good rains and get that stuff started, and you turn a group of cows out on that farm, and the cows do better. That ground is noticeably better for the next 2 or 3 years with water holding capacity and organic matter. We're pretty blessed with organic matter where we're at, but anything we can do to build that up. Is he going to pay for the seed? Then I would definitely do it if he's going to pay for the seed. But
Did not say.
It's your scenario.
You can ask him.
All right, so he's definitely paying for the seed.
Okay.
Then I'm doing it. I'm rolling the dice, and we get a couple rains, and I'm grazing a lot of cows on that ground.
He's going to pay for the seed. You're going to pay for the seeding, the planting, taking care of after that.
Yep,
He gets a win out of that.
I like it.
Come to Minnesota and you bump that to about 3 out of every 5 years instead of once every 5 years.
But when you talk about that rotation with the small grain and then the cover crop, that is still the best opportunity to get a good grazing cover crop in the fall. Like, we've really pushed things with getting a cover crop in corn and soybeans, and we can make it work, especially southern Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, with rye on corn ahead of soybeans. That works awesome. But like, when we want big, deep radishes and we want, like, nitrogen credits from our crimson clover and common vetch, you got to be thinking about the time that it actually has to grow and when you're planting it, and it is always after small grain, to actually make that work right.
Yeah, and that's one thing, from about 2015 to 2020, or really in the 2010s, a lot of farmers in our area got away from wheat, just pure economics of it. Economics still don't look great on wheat right now, but we were getting a lot of rainfall then, and even though the corn price, past 2012, the corn price and bean price weren't great, we were raising big yields, 150, 180 bushel corn, 40, 50 bushel soybeans, and weren't making any money on wheat, so we just got away from it. And it took about 5 years, and then 2020 hit, 2021 hit, that our rainfall was significantly reduced, and you could pick out those cornfields from a mile away that were planted behind a small grain stubble or that were planted behind soybean stubble. There's just no comparison. So we joke wheat's a poverty grass, or a corn cover crop, basically, is what we put it back in our rotation for. But man, when you start adding the ability to have a cover crop that you can plant in the middle of the summer and have 90 good growing days, to get all of that stuff established, you never have to till it, because now all of a sudden we have deep tillage. We still have a plow layer that's existed for generations in our really heavy gumbo soil. So we start getting them deep tap-rooted radishes, turnips, things like that to break through that plow layer and kind of flocculate our soil a little bit. So that's really helped us economics-wise, put small grains back in the rotation, and then if we can get some grazing after that and either bring in some cows to graze or just graze our own cows and don't have to feed them near as long, that's a win-win for us.
That's not even to mention the savings, at least from what I've seen on our 3-crop rotation, the savings you can have on your corn by maybe going to non-GMO or a less traded corn after that, plus savings on nutrients. If you've got legumes in your cover crop mix, you're putting down less nitrogen. I mean, the cost savings on your corn the next year is a huge benefit too.
Yeah, and we look at the volatility of the fertilizer market, and let's be honest, folks, it's coming. There's going to be a time when we're going to start to be reduced in the amount of nitrogen we can put in. Some people maybe already are having those scenarios, and if we can start making our own nutrients and making our own organic matter and lessening the need for fertilizer and herbicides, one thing we can't use, and I probably shouldn't even say this word out loud, the R word, rye. We can't use that in our rotation just because of our winter wheat, especially our seed winter wheat. So we don't have the ability to put rye, but man, I wish there was a wheat crop that had the ability to hold weeds and suppress weeds like the rye plant does, because there is nothing like it. If you have the ability and you have the rainfall to follow a soybean crop with rye, and then have that rye crop grow in the spring, things like Palmer can't grow through it. And other tough to kill weeds, I'd be doing that all day long, because there's just a lot of benefits aside from the grazing, aside from everything else.
I would say this is a second scenario we've had where we have like this subleasing opportunity. It's surprising how much of that has been happening in the last 5-8 years, right? And almost always, it could be prevent plant, rarely a fire, but a hailstorm. Prevent plant's the most common scenario. But even when the elevator thinks that those were enlist beans and they were really, they think they were XtendFlex and they were really enlist and that kind of stuff, get some bare areas. There's a lot of ground.
That too has happened to me.
Yeah. There's a lot of ground that gets swapped out middle of summer for these opportunities. And a lot of times it's young people that have access to an air seed or a drill making an opportunity to say, hey, I'm constrained on the acres that I can farm, but if I'm willing to work and put the time in the middle of summer when everybody else is at the lake, I can go out and pull in. I had a guy that did 3,000 acres of millet to put up for hay, 100% on somebody else's prevent plant acres, 5 different farmers, and that was the trade-off, right? He just got to do it. Prevent plant was there. He got to do it for ground cover and, started a hay operation, in the middle of summer.
He didn't get to go to the lake, though.
He did not go to the lake at all.
All right. Quentin, you're up again. You ready?
All right, let's go. Stop it.
Okay.
Dealer's choice. Actually, it's your choice.
Snap.
Okay,
Mine.
what do you think?
Let's do, have we done an opportunity yet?
I don't know if we have.
Let's try that.
Just one. Okay. Opportunity card. The new Farm Bill is out.
What?
The No Kernel Left Behind Act provides free crop insurance to farmers implementing a 4-crop rotation. How do you diversify and manage this new rotation?
Holy smokes. I'm still appalled
You're
we got the Farm
doubling.
Bill through. Let me see. So, yeah, we're a bit of the boring corn and soybean guy. So, I'll probably, can we do rye?
You can do any
Sure.
4-crop rotation you want.
Gosh, okay. So, yeah, I'm a corn, soybean, rye, and I want to throw in some wheat because I've heard some good things and we're not a good wheat area, so I kind of want to throw that in the rotation. So, I'm probably going to have to go those 4 and hope for the best, but those crop insurance premiums are pretty steep, so if we're getting that for free, I think we can make something like that work. So, and then I still get my rye cover crop, so I'm still going to be, I've started this, I was going to be a cover cropper when I grow up, so just about there. So, but yeah, just fun stuff like that. So, I don't know, if that worked for you guys, I'm good with that.
Well, I think even thinking about some of the stuff that Agspire does and the things that you're talking about with crop rotations and what qualifies for crop rotations, a lot of what you're saying, you asked, right? Does rye work for a crop rotation?
Yeah.
And
No, that's a great perspective, right? So what AgSpire brings to the table for people that wanted to be in our programs, a lot of them are focused on diversifying crop rotations. A lot of them are focused on expanding grazing opportunities. But in addition to just being able to provide programs that have incentives, we also have a team of technical advisors, producer advisors, experts in the field that can help you to creatively come up with opportunities or address challenges. We take a lot of people on that have really challenged soil health areas, saline spots, or whatever it may be, or maybe they have to retire, pivot due to lack of water, and so come up with what are innovative ways that we can do that. So come up with not only idea generation, but also incentives to go along with that.
all right, who is next? Oh, we got to do a little check-in, right? See what the polls are saying.
Yeah, hopefully I remember at this point. So back to Brady and sorghum. That one was very popular. It was probably 95% agree.
job.
Jared, probably 50% of people wanted to keep their farm and 50% of people
Yeah.
would have taken the trade.
That's what we were up here too.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
50-50
Yeah,
split.
that's a hard one.
Yep.
For Trent, that one was, most people agreed with that one too. I'm just getting in the text for Clinton. It's split, 50-50.
Kind of split. Okay.
I wonder if we changed that question, if you moved east versus west, it would stay the same.
Take it
Does
every time.
Yeah.
It'd be like 95%.
Or south. Yeah, that's what you're right. Yeah, that would be hard then. You'd probably be happy where you're at.
I wouldn't do that.
No.
No.
Brady, you want to play?
Yeah.
All right, let's spin it.
Stop.
Opportunity.
Another
Another opportunity. 2 in a row. Okay, a supply chain disruption focuses. A supply chain. Oh, this is a good one for you. All right, a supply chain disruption forces a local hog farm to give away feeder pigs that do not have finishing space available. You receive 100 free 75-pound feeder pigs, but you must take them 3 days from now. If you cannot put them in a commercial barn, even if you had it, where and how do you raise the pigs?
This is a really tough question because my uncle is sitting in the audience. That's what he does for a living,
Okay.
is raises pigs. So I hope I don't get judged too bad for my answers. But the first thing that comes to my mind is we have a monoslope that we develop bulls in all winter.
Yeah.
But it sits empty pretty much all summer. And I've always kind of wondered, is there any way you could put like some self-feeders in there, rig up a different water for hogs, but could you put hogs in there and they'd be under a roof? But the regenerative side of me doesn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to try. We have a direct marketing business. I see a demand for pastured pork. I think they're coming to me free, so the death loss is going to be big if you take confinement feeder pigs and try to raise them free range. But I think I'd like to try it.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna?
I
what are you
might
gonna,
pull my hair out by the time I'm done, but at least I can say I tried it.
So you're just gonna put them on pasture? Are you gonna plant something, have them graze that?
Trees?
You put them in the
Yeah.
trees. You got lots of trees around there. Get them in
We
the
do
trees.
have trees, yeah. The deer hunters might not be real impressed, but put them in the trees. That's the other thing, you'd have to redo some fencing. You'd have to pull out the old woven wire and try to probably fence with that because our 4 high tensile wires are not going to hold pigs in.
Couple of low hot wires works pretty good for a pig in an outdoor scenario. They're super sensitive to it because our snout hits everything first and it's moist, they're really well grounded. It's surprising how many people, we know folks that just like put up a few wires and have the hogs outdoors in the trees and that's how they raise them. I think it's interesting that, there's a lot of discussion around, grass-fed versus grain-fed beef. Well, to go to grass-fed beef, you kind of lose some of the, the efficiencies and the productivity and the weight gains that you can get from corn-fed beef. And then you also end up with, for the most part, a less desirable finished product, right? A less tender, less juicy product at the end of the day. When you go to pasture pork, you're actually making a product that you could sell for 3 to 4 times the value just on quality alone, not to mention the how it was raised thing. So it is interesting because there is an opportunity to upgrade that because we've been selling whole boneless pork loins in the grocery store for $1.79 a pound since like we were kids. And it's like the same, right? But if you put something there that was significantly different and better, you can charge 3 or 4 times that.
I think the other thing too is like my uncle down in Kansas, he used to farrow pigs outside, and he'd just put a big round bale of straw, and they'd just burrow into that round bale of straw in the middle of winter and farrow in the straw and kind of create their own bedding. I think they do still have some natural instincts to survive outdoors.
So you're going to keep all 50 gilts that you got, and hopefully you got at least one nutted boar in the other 50 barrows, and maybe just kind of start farrowing.
Right.
Okay.
Create a line that can survive.
That
You're going to
escalated
lose
quickly.
probably
That
25%.
escalated quickly.
But
Okay.
And then your grandkids can swear at you when they're pulling out that woven wire in 50, 60 years.
Because they're farming it.
It is crazy to me. So, anybody have pigs before 1994, 93? Yeah, about everybody had pigs. Like where we grew up, everyone had pigs. And that's how we raised them. It was all, they weren't confinement barns. We farrowed them in a barn. It was kind of a makeshift barn. And then we put them out on dirt and put them out on grass. And that's how we made it. So it's, I think it's doable. It's really doable. But yeah, hopefully grandpa or dad are still around and can remind you how to do pigs on dirt.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about that, and then comparing that to the poultry industry right now too. But then how we've seen so many different backyard chicken coops and like homesteaders are raising their own eggs now, and so maybe you kind of see that with the pig side too. If you're going to increase the value of it, you have to make it just a little bit different. So who knows what that means on the beef side of stuff? We haven't seen that ever take place. We've been able to make this really good production system. We've been able to make a high quality, tasty product, and we've been doing it efficiently, but sort of like messy too, as far as it's not a systematic way that everybody does it either. So just
I see a lot more stocker programs, though. A lot more people
That's true.
focusing on forage plantings or grass plantings to be able to extend and make a stocker program, because it's not just about the weight, it's moving that animal into a superior marketing window and getting that compensatory gain coming back in out of the feed yard, coming off grass. More and more interest all the time, especially in the north in stocker programs, where we've traditionally gone away from that for the most part. I know it's always been big in the south, but a lot more stocker interest in the north.
Well, I think we've probably seen an increase, especially in the Dakotas, just, less cow-calf herds and, the labor intensity of that, and it's pretty easy to just buy calves in the summer and run them on grass and capture that gain from value there too.
One thing I didn't think with this scenario, we had finally had the excuse to get a Cluckety-Cluck 2000 stock cropper.
Yeah.
And we could run the stock cropper in our fields.
Except they're like backward of 3 years, and you have to take the pigs in 3 days. So they are like they're hard to get.
Details.
Jared, you're up again.
All right,
You ready?
Spin it. Okay, sorry, I forgot to tell you to stop. My bad. Dealer's choice. All right, I'm going to take a wild card here because I like this section. Okay, your 4-year-old stole your phone and accidentally bid on an online auction. You now have an overpriced pallet of OptiGraze that you paid twice the value for. What will you do with it? All right.
So I'll give you context what OptiGraze is and everybody else. So OptiGraze is like an annual grazing mix. So we're talking about some of these scenarios where you could, maybe you're going to buy feeder pigs, you're going to buy some feeder calves, you're going to plant OptiGraze on farmland, and it's Italian ryegrass, forage oats, and some hybrid brassicas. So everything regrows. So the idea is to paddock this off, move some water, move some fence, rotationally graze through this, and put good gain, because it's good quality, on livestock. So that's OptiGraze. You just have to, you have it, and it's overpriced.
Right. It's just happened. Okay, so this is actually comes into play about this time in the cycle, about every 4 or 5 years, when the cattle cycle kind of hits at the high, combined with commodity prices kind of in a slump like this. And I know that no one wants to talk about raising less of corn and soybeans and wheat, but honestly, we're going to have to do something to diversify to get those prices back up or like get rid of some supply. For me, this year, I don't want to go buy $4,000 bred heifers right now to like stock this. But I'm very concerned with how dry we are in South Dakota right now. So I'm very focused on saying, what am I going to do to give me some buffer forage, buffer grazing opportunities so I do not have to destock right now when I want to kind of ride this next couple years feeder calves highs out. So I'm going to use that in a 3-crop rotation with corn and soybeans. I'm going to take my lowest lying, most flood-prone fields to be able to kind of get some compaction areas worked through and get some infiltration in the water. Those are also going to be my saline areas, my lowest productivity fields, and I'm going to use that to try and take some of these saline areas back. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to stockpile it, and then I'm going to assess midsummer on whether I need to graze that or move it into a forage scenario.
Are you going to sign up for Grass is Greener before you do that?
I'm going to sign up for Grass is Greener, which is one of the AgSpire programs that we have, which does offer an incentive program and technical assistance to be able to showcase how this can work into a crop rotation and build cow herds.
Cool.
Okay.
What are they saying, Julia? Is that a good answer?
Only one person has voted on Jared's, and they agreed.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, individual.
Is this on? Yeah. So there was only one person that would not take the hogs. Everyone else agreed with you.
Got to take hogs. Anything for free. We're farmers. Anything free, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
usually, yeah.
why not?
Opportunistics.
Do they come with a hat?
So we're going to shake it up. We're going to do it with the crowd now. I think that's a great idea, right? So we got one. Is there somebody in the audience who wants to play?
Okay.
All right.
Any volunteer? Come up to
Yeah.
the microphone.
There's a microphone right behind you. Or Julia, pass it.
You need some new friends.
Okay, you can tell me, you ready to spin?
Oh yeah, you're good to go.
Okay.
Okay, stop.
This is,
One more time.
that is amazing.
Stop.
All right. That's opportunity. You want to introduce yourself and where you're from?
Yeah, so I'm Sam Meyer. Go to SDSU. We're here on a school trip, so it's a pretty cool trip that got sponsored by the Minnesota, South Dakota soy, and then South Dakota corn. I farm, if you know where Mobridge, South Dakota is, you go north to North Dakota just a mile. So East River, but by not even a mile, so right on the river, so, yeah.
Okay. So we have, this is a long one, okay? But to increase beef supply availability for the growing carnivore diet trend, a promotional program gifts 25 bred heifers to any farmer who will take them, but you must keep them for more than a year to qualify. You also cannot increase stocking rate on any existing pasture that you have, and new pasture is unavailable. They cannot be dry lighted to the rules of the program. How do you accommodate these heifers arriving in 60 days?
Well, I have a lot of pasture already. A lot of
Okay.
cows. Most of our farmland is not. Farmland is pasture. Well, I'm actually looking at going the other way and taking pasture and turning it into farmland because we got some areas. But if you gotta do that, the only option would be go the other way. We have some less productive acres that you could turn back into pasture. Kind of been looking at that through the cover crop route right now. I'm planting a little bit of rye, particularly edges of fields where the deer love to eat. So that's been a big help. So I think what I would do is, on a lot of fields, I would actually just maybe cut back 100 feet around the edge of the field and turn that into another pasture where the deer are going to eat anyway. Probably plant some cover crops on it, some rye. We've been having good luck with that. Probably some kale and turnips also on that. So yeah, I would probably take some less productive acres, make it into a cover crop / pasture. Kind of.
Perfect. And there's another practice. It's very rarely I've seen it been done in the United States, but it's very common in Canada, which is to freshen up, some of these like introduced pastures, like kind of thin pastures with annual cover crops going within it, right? So like almost like topping up and increasing productivity of pasture acres by planting aggressive annual cover crop grazing mixes in it, right?
Yeah, and it works well when you can use species that are offsetting the growth habits of what's existing there, right? So things that have more tendency to grow in hotter weather, whether it's a sedan, a cowpea, mung bean, millets, they're going to grow when your cool season grasses are suppressed. So we can kind of go in there after you graze it once, and boom, we get hot and dry. Those things kind of take off. As long as they're not being shaded down or crowded out by the existing grasses, they might increase some productivity there as well.
And they're nutrient dense. I mean, the cows do so well on them. If you got cow-calf pairs on them, the calves do well on them just because it's a lot more than just a grass, and it works really well.
All right, so now we're going to go back. Raise your hand if you want. We're going to vote. We can vote for Trent, Quentin, or who do you want to vote? Or who do you want to answer the next one? Raise your hand if you want Quentin.
Okay.
Okay, raise your hand if you want Trent.
A few. Quentin's
Okay,
up.
raise your hand if you want Brady.
Ooh, Quentin, I think it's you.
It's Quentin. All right, Quentin.
Quentin, you're up.
So we're going to go back to Quentin. Ready?
All right, let's go. All right, good.
That's wild
That's
card.
a wild card.
That's a
All
wild
right,
card.
I can work with that.
All right. Armed conflict breaks out between your home state and the state directly to the east of you, causing you and your family to flee as refugees. You can move your operation to any state other than the two in conflict. What new state do you go to and why? What new challenges or opportunities do you see because of the move?
Oh man,
Iowa,
this is
Iowa,
just
Nebraska.
another just another day at
Finally
the
gonna duke it
Nebraska-Iowa
out.
border. So totally on board with this. So yep, Nebraska corn, we got to throw that in. But yeah, I think I'm kind of between South Dakota and Kansas. Trent's representing South Dakota pretty good, so I think I'm going to go down to Kansas because there's some good irrigation spots in there, and that's kind of my realm. And we can mix some more of the livestock in there. So I'm going to go Kansas. A little more desolate down there, and I've met some really good Kansas farmers. So
What
it's
new
intriguing.
challenges do you see that though?
Irrigation management, which I love doing that. We're not regulated in my neighborhood yet, but I'm targeting that. We bring a lot of stuff to watch our irrigation. And then just the more diversity we can bring to the operation with cattle, pigs, and sheep. Sheep are good, and like I've talked to Jared a little bit about sheep because we're in the solar realm too, so bringing sheep on and whatever else we can to diversify. So I think I'm going to go with Kansas on there. I don't know.
Okay.
Do you see your farming system change?
Not a whole lot, just more regulation on water, and the soil is going to be a lot different, a lot lighter probably than we're used to, but depends on the area. But I think I could swing it without too much a headache.
Would you change anything as far as the soil being lighter, as far as field management, tillage practices, planting methods?
Yep. I'd definitely do the more cover crops. So I'm all river bottom, so that's what I was slow to the cover crop realm. We're still about 60% tillage up there. I'm getting down to more no-till, but down there I think they can use more cover crops, and I know there's some microbial market that's starting up. So I know some microbial rands down there. We can go down that sometime, but test a lot of organics on my farm, so I got a little belief in some companies out there. So yeah.
Very good. All right, so Julie, do you want to give a report as far as what the audience thought, if they'd agree with him?
So far, just one person would not go to Kansas. People liked Kansas.
Staying in Nebraska.
Yeah. And we did not get any votes from the audience participation, so.
All right, yeah. So I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I think the idea here was to give you a glimpse of just how creative we can be with some of these scenarios. And so taking that deck of cards home, it might be a little fun to sit around with your family at family reunions or friends if you go have a beer with them and you can run through those scenarios. And so obviously we'd love if you come visit our booth. Renova's at 1727 and Egg is right across the alley there at 1721. We can talk through all these crop rotations and the different possibilities there are, and then some of the different programs that Egg can help you out with if you're just getting into this and you want some technical assistance or financial assistance, planting cover crops or interseeding pastures, planting native grass back for perennial pasture. We can help work with you on that. So we want to open it up with questions. We've got about 5 minutes left, so feel free to hop on one of those mics and we'll take questions at this time.
I will come to you
Or he'll come-
if
okay.
you want me to.
So you guys mentioned about rye and stuff like that. Have you guys tried the difference in like crimping it before planting or planting in seeding, letting it sprout, and then crimping it after that? Or what's your opinion on that?
Brady, you've done some rye, right?
Yeah, I've done some rye. In Minnesota, it doesn't quite get tall enough to crimp, so I haven't done any crimping, but we've done desiccating with chemical. I'll use this year for an example. We had awesome luck with it just because we had such a wet spring. So we actually took a cutting of rye off, I think it was about May 25th. Got about 5 1/4 ton of rye before the head came out. And so then got a really good crop of that. Planted the soybeans, let the rye grow back. It was even starting to head out again. So it was about knee high by the time we terminated it. In that scenario, you maybe could have crimped it, but we just don't have access to one. But it was our best soybeans. It actually out-yielded our irrigated soybeans by a bushel. And the reason I think with that being was because the rain shut off for us in August. And so allowing that rye to grow with the soybeans until those soybeans hit about first trifoliate really allowed the soybeans root structure to push deeper into the soil. And so then when the rain shut off in August, we weren't stuck with a bunch of shallow rooted soybeans. So I think the competition there really benefited the soybeans later on in the year, just so that it still had access to moisture.
Yeah, done the same thing, but not crimped yet. We usually kind of plant thinner rates for the most part. So I'm not sure if we would have a thick enough stand to get the crimp to come through, and then sometimes it doesn't get as tall either, right? But planting green the last couple of years, we've done it on probably 20% of our fields. We usually terminate it right before we plant, right? So it's still green, we're going into it, but it's already got that good kill on it before we come into it. And we've had years where we've lost some subsoil moisture and the beans have been dinged a little bit. We've had years where they're the best soybeans because we have way better infiltration in the soil on those acres because of it. All in all, it's been a net benefit, but there has been, in a more moisture constricted area, some of those years where you'd say, yeah, maybe I lost 2, 3, 4 bushels because of the drier conditions. Those are going to be in low yield environment years anyway, where you might already be in a crop insurance scenario. But we're getting more maximum yields when we're getting moisture by eliminating some of those drowned out areas and areas that ordinarily would have, been, not yielding anything because of the infiltration of the water.
It's definitely, what I tell people is it's definitely a moisture management tool. Not every year is the same. I know some corn soybean guys don't like that because they want to, this is what I do every year, just calendar hits this and I'm terminating her. But it's definitely, every year is different. You got to base it off if you're getting moisture or not.
In the spring, we'll kind of tell you what to do too, based off of how early the spring we have. Sometimes if we have a late spring, we got to be kind of concerned about getting our crop in on time too. And so it might just be easiest to just kill that rye off right away, be done with it, and get your crop growing and make sure that you're focused on that profitability of that one too. But you got to play it by ear with rye. It seems like every year is a little different.
Anybody else have a question for the guys? Got one? Oh, great.
Yeah, I'm from Nebraska, so hi, Quentin. Anyway, my question is kind of in our area where in the corn and beans area, we have a lot of areas that we're traditional oats, a lot of small grain. I'm in northeast Nebraska, so bordering South Dakota. How do you, what advice would you give? Because the big challenge for getting cover crops in corn and beans is after corn, you just don't have a lot of time to get it seeded right and to get any good out of the root structure and the biomass. So if farmers who are traditional corn and beans are interested in getting a small grain into their rotation, what advice would you give to them, to get over those concerns about the economics, and maybe if they don't have a lot of experience in small grains like many of you do? So.
Yeah. So one of the programs that we help to deliver, and it's a partnership with Millborn Seeds, is the Covering America program. And it's really designed to be able to build a more robust market for oats, rye, flax, buckwheat in this geography. We're heavily dependent on imports for all 4 of those commodities, not only in the commodity trading, but also in the seed market as well. So, and then you look what happened today, okay? And the clear message that is being sent, which is focus on internal, right? The things that we're doing geopolitically are going to have an impact on those commodities that have traditionally been net exporting commodities. Look at net importing commodities and say, how will that change in the future? Because every bushel of oats that was previously coming out, and it is crazy that there will have to be some adaptation of the marketplace and even the milling. I mean, there's a mill, an oats mill in Iowa that does not have a truck unloading facility. It only can take rail cars, okay? So you're like, oh, I've got a mill right by me, they buy oats. You have to get them in a rail car. You're not going to get them in a rail car where you're at over there to them. So there's going to have to be some adaptation that happens in the marketplace if we're going to focus on some of these more internal commodities. But we do help folks, and in this situation, we're doing that to raise those oats or rye primarily for seed, to try and build a more robust domestic network of those resources. So it is a program, and we do have people on there say, hey, this might be the first time in 30 years or the first time in my lifetime that we've ever done this. I need a refresher. And some of those crops, it's not easy to go to the local agronomist, because he'll just go back to the textbook or go to the University Extension website. And those haven't been updated either. And in South Dakota, the fertilizer recommendations for rye are the same for winter wheat, because it's assuming that nothing has changed between those two commodities in 60 years, and they've diverged so widely. And if you actually fertilize based on the book recommendations your rye, it would be completely lodged in an absolute disaster if you're going to try and combine it. So there is a lot of nuance to some of these new crops. The team at Renovo has got a lot of expertise for people that want to try and get into it, as well as AgSpire coming with, again, technical assistance and sometimes incentives to be able to help people branch out. A really good way to do that, if you're in a cow-calf environment area too, is to grow, if you're not ready to go buy the pickup head and the swather, just raise it for a forage, right? So try it with a small spot, raise it, use it to make some hay. Again, we'll do some of that on our acres this year, because the priority is to keep the cow herd intact no matter what happens this year. And the market's telling us that we can diversify and not lose out on too much potential from our row crops. So adding a 40 or an 80 acres of oats, just strictly put it up for hay. Now we're coming in the end of June with a cover crop for grazing instead of what would have been probably the first part of August too.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity to think outside the box. I mean, if we look at commodity prices right now, corn and beans don't look very great economically. And I think this is a really neat time in agriculture to find different ways. I wish we had more markets for wheat and oats and things like that make it a lot easier to incorporate them, but we're just not quite there yet. But I can tell you firsthand that you start putting in a small grain into your rotation, your fields change, and that's something we've noticed a lot.
Yeah, I work with farmers that, they put oats in a field, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and they're still seeing the yield advantage on their corn on corn after that.
All right,
Any last question? Otherwise, yeah, appreciate you listening, and feel free to hop into the booth or grab us afterwards, and we'd love to have a conversation with you. So thank you very much.
Text the winner. Okay, and we will text the winner of the door prize for the seed mix. So you will get a text message shortly, within an hour, within a half an hour. And then either respond to that or come by the booth and we'll make arrangements. Thank you everybody for coming.